In the shadowy, rain-slicked streets of Boston, where history whispers from every cobblestone and ancient brick, a young woman named Emily Turner sought a new beginning. She had just moved into a charming, albeit old, apartment in a historic brownstone, hoping the city's vibrant energy would wash away the ghosts of her past. But she soon discovered that some places hold on to their ghosts a little too tightly. The building, with its creaking floors and drafty windows, seemed to possess a personality of its own, a silent, watchful presence that she initially dismissed as the quirks of old architecture. Her apartment overlooked a narrow street, directly facing a derelict, abandoned building that stood like a skeletal sentinel against the often gray Boston sky. Its windows were like hollow, vacant eyes, boarded up and broken, yet Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was being observed from within its decaying walls. The feeling solidified into chilling certainty one particularly tumultuous night. A fierce nor'easter was battering the city, with wind howling like a tormented spirit and rain lashing against her window panes in violent rhythmic bursts. As flashes of lightning momentarily illuminated the dark street below, her gaze was involuntarily drawn to the abandoned building across the way. In a jagged, brilliant flash of light that split the sky, she saw it. A figure, tall and impossibly still, stood in one of the shattered, unboarded windows on the top floor. It was a silhouette, a void of darkness against the brief, electric blue backdrop of the storm. It had no discernible features, yet Emily felt its gaze lock onto her with an unnerving intensity. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drum against the symphony of the storm. She blinked, hoping her eyes were playing tricks on her, a figment of an overactive imagination fueled by the tempest. But when the next bolt of lightning lit up the scene, the figure was still there, a phantom watcher in the night, its form unwavering, its silent vigil fixed solely on her. From that night forward, the unsettling feeling that had been a quiet hum in the back of her mind escalated into a deafening roar of paranoia and fear. The sense of being watched was no longer confined to the view from her window. It seeped through the very walls of her apartment, a constant, oppressive presence that clung to her like a second skin. Her sanctuary had become a cage, and she was the frightened animal trapped within. The strange occurrences began subtly at first, easy to rationalize away. There were footsteps, heavy and deliberate, pacing back and forth in the empty apartment directly above hers, always in the dead of night when the rest of the building was shrouded in silence. She would lie awake in her bed, her body rigid, listening to the rhythmic tread of an unseen walker on the ceiling, her breath catching in her throat with every creak of the floorboards above. The lights in her apartment developed a mind of their own, flickering and dying at random intervals, plunging her into sudden, heart-stopping darkness before just as inexplicably returning to life. Her electrician found nothing wrong with the wiring, shrugging and blaming the building's ancient infrastructure. But Emily knew better. It felt deliberate, a malicious game being played by an unseen entity. Then came the photograph. One morning, she opened her front door to find a small, sepia-toned picture lying on her doormat. It was old, its edges worn and curled with age. The image was of a young woman, dressed in clothing from a bygone era, perhaps the early 20th century. But it was the woman's face that made Emily's blood run cold. She looked exactly like Emily, the same eyes, the same curve of the lips, the same cascade of dark hair. It was her own face staring back at her from across a century. The resemblance was uncanny, impossible. She turned the photograph over, her hands trembling. Scrawled on the back in a jagged, spidery script were 5 terrifying words that seemed to burn themselves into her mind. I am still watching. A cold, primal terror seized Emily, but beneath it, a desperate, defiant resolve began to smolder. She couldn't live like this, a prisoner in her own home, haunted by a shadow from across the street and a ghost from the past. The police would think she was delusional, and her friends would tell her she was just stressed from the move. She was on her own. The source of her torment, she knew with a grim certainty, lay within the decaying husk of the abandoned building. It called to her a siren song of dreadful answers. Armed with nothing but a heavy-duty flashlight and a growing sense of dread, she decided to confront the source of her fear. One evening, as dusk painted the city in shades of bruised purple and gray, she crossed the street, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. The front door of the building was boarded up, but she found a broken window on the ground floor, its jagged edges like teeth in a gaping mouth. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, she hoisted herself over the sill and into the suffocating darkness within. The air inside was thick and stagnant, heavy with the scent of decay, damp rot, and dust that had settled for decades. Her flashlight beam cut a nervous path through the gloom, revealing peeling wallpaper, collapsed ceilings, and furniture shrouded in white cloths like forgotten corpses. Every creak of the floorboards under her feet, every rustle from the dark corners of the vast, empty rooms, sent a fresh jolt of adrenaline through her veins. She felt the watcher's presence more strongly here than ever before, a palpable cold that seemed to emanate from the very walls. Guided by an instinct she couldn't explain, she made her way up a grand, decaying staircase, the flashlight beam dancing over cobwebs as thick as cotton. She ascended to the top floor, to the very room where she had seen the shadowy figure standing. The room was mostly empty, save for a thick layer of dust and a large, ornate mirror leaning against the far wall. The glass was clouded with age and grime, and a large spiderweb crack fractured its surface. As Emily approached the mirror, a strange compulsion drew her closer. She raised her flashlight, peering into the murky depths of the glass. Her own reflection stared back, pale and wide-eyed with fear. But then something impossible happened. As she stood frozen in place, her reflection in the mirror slowly, deliberately, began to move on its own. A small, chilling smile spread across its lips, a smile Emily was not making. Her blood turned to ice. A voice, a dry, rasping whisper that sounded like dead leaves skittering across pavement, slithered out from the mirror, echoing in the dead silence of the room. "You finally came back," her reflection whispered, its voice a discordant symphony of malice and ancient longing. A guttural scream tore from Emily's throat, a raw, desperate sound that was swallowed by the vast, empty halls of the decaying building. In that final, horrifying moment, the shadow in the mirror, the dark silhouette she had seen from her window, solidified. It detached itself from the glass, its form coalescing as it stepped out of the fractured surface and into the room. It reached for her, its touch like the grave. And then, in a blink, Emily Turner, the young woman who had sought a new life in Boston, vanished without a trace, leaving only an echoing scream and another ghost to wander the halls of the house that was always watching.